on this whole thing. Like, what do you think of him this year as he is like a consensus round 1 fantasy pick?
I think there's ceiling and there's still meat on the bone for where he's going even in drafts. I mean, a lot of times he's being ranked as like a mid to low end wide receiver 1, depending on rankings that you're following and stuff. And I think that the ceiling for him to achieve, and I'm not going to say throw this out here and trying to be hyperbolic, but like the high end parts of being a wide receiver 1, like I'm not going to project like the legendary Cooper Kupp season on Puka, but what was he doing out the gate with no Kupp last year? Like, if Kupp never returned, what type of season will we have gotten from Puka if Kupp didn't come back? So, like, we've already gotten a little bit of a preview of what a true ceiling outcome for Puka would look like the first few weeks of last season. So, I think, like, if we get Kupp, and I want him to stay healthy the entire year, but considering advancing age, the injuries have been mounting the last few years. If he takes another small step back, and he's still a really solid wide receiver, both in fantasy and NFL circles, but this passing attack, and Matthew Stafford has proved time and time again, he's the wide receiver kingmaker. Yeah. If they lean on Puka and he stays healthy, he could be a top 3 wide receiver this year. Like, he's already shown us that type of upside when we just look back to last year when Kupp wasn't even there.
It's a great point, because I think, and I'm sure people have seen this analysis a lot this offseason of like, well, if you look at the games where Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua were on there together, and I mean, by the way, he still has great target numbers, great targets per route, the whole deal. And I think that safety with Puka is something that's going to really appeal to a lot of people, because look at the composition of the depth chart right now. It's, there's Cooper Kupp, there's Puka Nacua, there's Demarcus Robinson, who did have some nice moments at the end of last year, but Jordan Whittington, they draft very late this year, Tyler Johnson, Tutu Atwell, like, even at the tight end position, there's questions there after they add Colby Parkinson, and like, what's Tyler Higbee doing from a health perspective? And also, like, if you're just a general target share bro, these 2 receivers are going to have high target share numbers, Kupp and Nacua this year, because they're going to run the piss out of the ball this year, and they're going to funnel the ball to those top 2 wideouts almost no matter what. So that's the floor of it. But you're right that with any pick that you're making early on, first, second round in your fantasy drafts, best ball, whatever, you should also consider like the contingent upside there. And you're right to point out that the proof is in the pudding what the contingent upside is for Puka Nacua if Cooper Kupp struggles with injuries. And I go back and forth on how to feel about Cooper Kupp. Like, I know a lot of people really like him as a value this year in round 3 in early best ball drafts. Like, we'll see where he goes in like real deal traditional redraft leagues, but I can kind of, again, see myself going back and forth on, like, I'm in the middle of working through his charting data right now, and even that's like going to be not conclusive, because just who knows where he's going to be at this point in his career.
Yeah, I agree with all that. And when I kind of projecting the Rams passing attack out this year and how I'm kind of attacking it in best ball drafts, like, I find myself aggressively drafting Puka. Like, I've got him as my wide receiver 6, I think, and he's at the top of tier 2. I think expecting him, and some of that rank is foretelling, like, I'm kind of expecting him to break into that tier 1 of wide receivers this year. But I find myself fading Kupp in a lot of different drafts only because I think he's fairly priced, but I don't think the price of him taking a step back is being equated into where he goes in drafts, because we look at the sample size of Nacua and Kupp on the field at the same time last year. He was the wide receiver 23 in fantasy points per game, and that's about where he's being drafted. Like, ECR and Fantasy Pros has been anywhere from like wide receiver 21 to wide receiver 24. And I've got him lower in my ranks. Like, I have him as a wide receiver 3, which some people could hate that, but projecting a small step back for Cooper Kupp is not insane. And I find myself drafting a ton of Demarcus Robinson because, like you pointed out, Harmon, like, whenever he finally got the starting job, I mean, he was the wide receiver 31 in fantasy points per game. He checked a ton of boxes when you look at whether you want to talk about yards per route run, target share, first downs per route run, all those different metrics. When he was the starter, we did see him produce really, really good numbers. So I'm enjoying the value, or taking the upside on Puka, or enjoying the value of Demarcus Robinson in drafts, and that leads me to a little bit less Cooper Kupp.
All right, so I think we've set the table of like what happened with Puka, why that was such a successful season, and how that can help us sort of look for candidates to be this year's Puka Nacua. So let's waste no more time. Let's get into it. We, again, are only going to talk about non-round one players this year. Yes, obviously that can be second round players, third round players. We're not necessarily looking at just day 3 guys. So